This conference will now be recorded.
2023, if y'all are interested. But again, if you can't go in 2023, or you don't want to go in spring, or you don't want to go with our group, we can do Israel and Jordan in many of ways. This will just give you a lot of ideas of what's available. So we thank you for joining us, and we'll go ahead and let me introduce you to our staff here at Travel Central. Travel Central has been in business for over 30 years. Our main goal here at Travel Central is just to help travelers. We offer our expertise, resources, and knowledge from the planning process, from the moment you call us all the way to your return home. We are your advocate. You have one advisor who is dedicated to you, who will answer questions and share advice for your vacation. Also, we offer amenities and upgrades when available, so your vacation experience will be enhanced. As I said, we've been here since 1988. I forgot a couple of housekeeping items. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll answer all questions at the end of the presentation. Joining us today, I'm sorry, my name is Melinda Bourgeois. I own Travel Central and been in the business for 35 years. And Bailey Marquis, who's actually been in the business for about 4 years, but has traveled throughout the world to over 50 countries in most states in the United States. So she'll be actually going on this vacation. We call it a hosted vacation if you're able to join us in March of 2023. So with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Thank you. So this is just a map showing you what the vacation would be. It goes all the way from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv up to the top of the Sea of Galilee and down to the Wadi Rum Desert in Jordan. So it's not a real large area, but it's a definitely diverse area, and I think you'll see a lot of neat things along the way. I've been to Israel 3 times and Jordan twice, and so I highly recommend both destinations. This is just a trivia question, just to get started while everybody signs on. We're getting people signing on as we talk. Which country has more museums per capita than any other in the world? And obviously the answer is there. I think that's amazing. They have 230 museums and counting in Israel. We will be able to enjoy a couple of those on the vacation, but a lot of actual physical sites that are truly probably museums, not museums like in buildings. So this is a picture, just to start us off, a picture of a group I took in 2018 to Israel. I always like to share a little bit. This is actually in front of, obviously, the Temple of Mount in Jerusalem in top of Israel. But I always like to share, because there's always some people who are a little concerned about going to Israel. And what's really cool is what you'll find is Israel obviously is one of the greatest places in the world to enjoy what everyone knows is the history of the Bible. No matter what you believe in it, the history of the Bible is there and it comes alive. But it's also a beautiful destination. When you fly into Tel Aviv, you're actually on the Mediterranean. So when you get there, you'll be on beaches and you're thinking, wow, this is kind of interesting. I never knew there was beaches in Israel. Maybe you did. But what's incredible is the food is fabulous and the people are friendly and the markets are great. So Israel, though it has many of the spiritual components that many people want to see and do, it also has a lot of fun things with the beach and the food and markets and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started from there. Jerusalem is only 45 minutes from the airport. So actually, 45 minutes from the airport. So once we land, we'll go through customs and immigrations, and then you go into Jerusalem. On the first day, you go to 2 very unique experiences, the Dead Sea and Masada. So Masada is really an incredible place. It's where a group of Jewish people fought against the Roman army, and actually 900 people actually ended up dying in that siege. And that's why it's one of the symbols to Israel and to the people of Israel of their sacrifice to remain free and not to be ruled by other kingdoms. And so as that is truly a neat place to go. It's also actually also where King Herod had his palatial resort and had his swimming pools and his springs, and you'll see all that when you go into the Masada. From Masada, you'll actually pass the caves, which I think is fascinating, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. And if you have time, I would watch the documentary on the Dead Sea Scrolls, because it really makes it come more alive to you. But a Bedouin boy actually found Dead Sea Scrolls, the original manuscripts, of the oldest manuscripts of the Bible, in caves on the way from Jerusalem to Masada and then over to the Dead Sea. And then after we do those two, after we go down further, we actually go to the Dead Sea. Really fun. If My husband doesn't float at all. And what's really cool about the Dead Sea, you can't sink. You can actually sit Indian style in the Dead Sea and you'll float around. So it's a great place. You go and you put the green mud all over your body, and then you go float in the Dead Sea and just enjoy yourself. It's just a neat afternoon activity. It's 70% salt. You never swim in there. It's dangerous to swim in there. You can't sink in there. You can hardly kneel in there because it's such a heavy water. This is really cool. Then you go to Bethlehem. So many people might not realize that Bethlehem is actually under Palestinian rule. So sometimes when you're in Bethlehem, when you go to Bethlehem, you have to actually change guides and drop buses because of the different rule, Israeli versus Palestinian. But it's not a big deal. It's easy. It's very easy to do. Our first stop is going to be at the Church of the Nativity. This is actually the Church of the Nativity. They have those low doors on the Church of the Nativity because originally that was a way to protect you from invasion. So the horseback riders could not fit into the door. You would actually just get whopped out if you tried to invade into that church. The church was actually built in 323. So if you hear from the area of the United States, we have nothing hardly that is built. We have nothing that was built in 325 AD. Interestingly enough, in Israel, if you're one of the things that you learn, or I learned, is they use BCE, before Common Era, and CE, where we use AD and BC, which is just a terminology, but it's just something that when you go, you're thinking, what do they mean by BCE? And that means before Common Era. Constantine the Great actually built this church in 325, and it's traditionally considered to be the birthplace of Jesus. So this is where they think the manger was, and you'll go in there, you go down into an area and see the area where they have actually marked where the manger was. The next day, we'll continue our day in Jerusalem. So we stayed overnight in Jerusalem. We went and spent the day in Masada. We went and then to the Dead Sea, and then we went out to Bethlehem, spent an afternoon in Bethlehem, and then we spent the day in Jerusalem. Cool place. The first picture you see over here is the Jewish quarter. Neat area of Jerusalem that you'll be able to explore and walk around and appreciate. You'll also go to the Wailing Wall, which if you've never been to Israel is pretty amazing, especially if you get there on a Friday night when they're celebrating their Sabbath and Shabbat. And all the Orthodox Jews come and they put their prayers in the little crevices in the walls. And then on Friday night, they actually do a lot of praying and get in a group of 12 and all in their formal dress. So it's kind of neat to go to the Wailing Wall. The other place you'll visit, that is a picture up here, is the museum, the Israel Museum. Visit the Museum of Israel. And this is where the Book of the Shrine is. It's called the Book of the Shrine exhibit, and it's where the Dead Sea Scrolls are actually exhibited. And it's pretty fascinating to go and see, and they have all the pieces of the scrolls in there, and it's actually the same Bible that we read today is the Bible that's written on those Dead Sea Scrolls that date back into the BC time. So it's pretty, I thought was one of the most interesting things to see. And then this picture up here is actually a stone model of what Jerusalem would look like in the 1st century, which is pretty fascinating. And then this picture at the bottom is actually a picture of Jerusalem as it is today, the old town of Jerusalem. Also in Jerusalem, probably the next day, you'll walk the Via Dolorosa. Via Dolorosa is where Christ passed. And it's the Stations of the Cross. So as you walk, you'll walk in the same direction he walked to where the cross was. And you'll see that different things. The end at the Holy Sepulchre. It's a Christian church at the very end of the Via Dolorosa. And it commemorates the traditional site of his resurrection. There's also another documentary on this that National Geographic did, and I'd recommend if you have time to watch it, on the resurrection of the tomb, the place where Christ was put after he had died on the cross. So it came out right before I went to Israel last time, and I haven't been able to see it, but I understand it's an interesting place. From there, we leave Israel. Not Israel. We leave Jerusalem, and we travel through the farmland of the Jordan Valley to Nazareth. And this is where they have the Catholic shrine. Nazareth is where the angel came to Mary and said she was going to be having Jesus, and so they have a shrine. The shrine is there. And then we visit the Mount of Beatitudes. So if anyone knows from the Bible, the 9 Beatitudes where Christ was on a mountain and he spoke the 9 Beatitudes. And this is where we go up to that church and see that. Again, just fascinating history. I've been through it. You see it's a beautiful country as well. As you can tell, there's lakes. You're going to go to the Sea of Galilee. You're going to go to the mountains and do different things. And Jerusalem is a fabulous, fabulous old city. When you look at the history of it, it's one of the best maintained old cities of the world. And the next morning we get up, we take a boat ride over the Sea of Galilee. So most of y'all know what the Sea of Galilee is. And we take a boat ride over there in a traditional boat. And then we actually go and see, they found a first century boat. So this is obviously not a first century boat, but they found it when the tide went out one time because of some storm. They found this boat and they have actually excavated the boat, and now it's in a museum, so you can actually see what an original boat would look like in the first century. So again, if you like history, Israel is full of history. You won't miss out on that. We also go to Capernaum, and Capernaum is considered considered the first church. It's where the Apostle Peter was, and he lived. This octagonal church that's above it was built in the 1990s, but below it was the original, what they think was the first church of the Catholics, and that's there. But what's really cool is a synagogue that was built. It's up here in the upper right-hand corner, and that synagogue was built in the BC, and it's fabulous because it still has, even though it has been pretty much destroyed, look at they have a lot of marble and a lot of areas that you can go in and walk around. And so it's pretty neat to see things that were built over 2,000 years ago that are still standing. And that's where they said that Jesus started his preaching and ministry was in Capernaum. And then this is a really cool place. And the picture on the below left is when I was in Israel a couple of years ago. If you hear from New Orleans, you'll understand that we're big Saints fans, New Orleans Saints. And I ran into a lady in a New Orleans Saints jacket, and her son was actually one of the coaches for the New Orleans Saints. So that was kind of fun, and that's just an off story. But that's what's really neat about traveling. You meet run into all kinds of people. And you can see there's a lot of seafood. Remember, you're along the Mediterranean, so you definitely have a lot of seafood and great choices. And another religion that's in Israel is called Baha. And I apologize if that's not how you say it correctly. But when we go to Haifa, it's actually Haifa is where Baha Shrine is, and they have the Persian hanging gardens that are there as well. So you can see it's a beautiful place that you get to visit. Celebrating a different religion. And then this is actually Caesarea. And Caesarea is on the Mediterranean, so it was definitely a trading port that was there. It was during Pontius Pilate was there. So anyone who knows, this is actually a stone. And if you read up here on the upper left-hand side, you'll see it says Pontius Pilate. That is where his house was in Caesarea. It was a beachside resort for the wealthy Roman aristocrats who would go down there. So that's what it was. And then you go to an amphitheater, and a gladiator stadium is there that you can see. So it's kind of an interesting place to go to. And you'll actually go there. And then onward to Tel Aviv. And again, like I said, Tel Aviv is on the Mediterranean as well, just like Caesarea. And you get to, and I always like to show pictures of markets because I think it's important that people realize that they have some great things in Israel. There's obviously a lot of history, there's a lot of beauty, a lot of places to go and do. And obviously it makes it a great place to visit. You do visit Rabin Square, and that's where the Prime Minister was assassinated. And it's also become a symbol of the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. There's a beautiful Rothschild Boulevard that you'll go, and there's different shops and places to do those kind of things. And then Old Jaffa, which over here shows you it's a port, and it shows you where Jaffa was located and how far the different locations from Jerusalem and all over the Middle East over there. And then, of course, Jaffa is also the story of Jonah. So you'll have some stories of Jonah in the biblical history there. And I know I have some more. This is Israel, some more pictures of Tel Aviv, and you can see the beach, you can see the city, the beautiful palms, and you can just enjoy the town. Before we go to Jordan, I'd just like to talk a little bit, and Bailey will be taking over Jordan and talk about some of the adventure, because though Israel has some adventure and beauty in the Dead Sea and Masada and all those great things you'll do and see, wait for Jordan because it has a lot more adventure. But I just want to remind, I always like to share with people a couple of things about traveling to Israel. It really is old streets and cobblestone. Definitely prepare for going to Israel by walking a lot. The more you walk, the more comfortable you'll be. I personally love to read fiction, historical fiction before I travel, just to kind of appreciate the destination. The book that I really enjoyed, if anybody reads Mishnah, is The Source. They also have a book by Lynn Austin on the Chronicles of the Kings, and the Chronicle of the Kings is the Old Testament and talks a lot about Jerusalem and that whole Israel area. As I said, the National Geographic has a great presentation on the tomb preservation, which is at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. They have incredible Mediterranean food. It talks about coffee. One of the most interesting things about Israel, most of y'all probably know it, they have mandatory military service. So you'll see lots of men walking around with guns, but that's not something to fear. It's just what it is. And so everyone carries their guns when they're on duty. And as I said, Bethlehem is under Palestinian authority, and you might have to change guards and vehicles for the day. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Jordan specialist. She actually is a specialist on Jordan and can't wait to go. And she'll share what we're going to be doing in Jordan and Amman and the Petra. So Bailey?
Hi, okay, so fantastic. We're moving on from Israel. We're now reaching the capital city of Jordan, which is Amman. So here we're going to see a blend of the new and the old. We've got the commercial heart of the city, which has ultra-modern buildings, hotels, galleries, and restaurants. And they're set right next to traditional coffee shops and tiny artist workshops. So the local currency is actually going to change also. We're now under the Jordanian dinar. Major credit cards are going to be accepted at hotels, restaurants, and larger shops, but cash is going to be necessary for when we visit the local souks. And then the temperatures are going to be around 72 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit with a really nice Mediterranean climate while we're there in March. Okay, so now we leave the capital and we're headed to ancient Jerash. So Jerash is the Greco-Roman ancient city, and it has an unbroken chain of human occupation dating back more than 6,500 years. So the city is best known for being one of the best preserved Roman provincial towns in the world. Within the city is the fountain where the Byzantine citizens celebrated Jesus' miracle of turning water into wine. So we get to visit the fountain court, which is this larger picture up on the screen. So it's a popular destination for pilgrims to visit. And then also here for this day, we're going to be visiting the Iraq Al-Imar Women's Association to make travel matter. So this is a really great experience of us meeting locals, seeing what they do, and being able to give back to them and the women there. Go ahead and click and it should start the video.
The video didn't go on, sorry about that.
Okay, that's okay. And then here's a cool trivia question, because this is what people want to go to Jordan for, is to visit the ancient city of Petra and the surrounding areas of Petra. So only 15% of Petra has been explored by archaeologists. So we'll get to visit those parts coming up next. So of course, the main part of Jordan is us visiting Petra. So this is one of the 7 wonders of the world, and we'll get to visit Petra and the surrounding areas. So this vast city is carved into sheer rock by an Arab civilization settled here over 2,000 years ago. So we'll get to have that day to explore the UNESCO World Heritage Site and the surrounding areas where we can walk and climb around, and it'll also reveal hundreds of buildings, tombs, baths, temples, arch gateways, and more. And then on our journey, we're going to be taking the King's Highway to visit Mount Nebo, which is one of the most revered holy sites in Jordan. It is the place where Moses is buried. And we'll get to see the mosaic map there and a lot of beautiful sights along the way. And then, so the next day, we're going to be visiting the Wadi Rum Desert. So we'll be taking a 4x4 Jeep and getting some adventure out there in the desert. And then we're also going to overnight at one of these luxury camps out in the desert. So looking and stargazing at night, Wadi Rum is literally the best destination on earth for stargazing. So we'll get adventure, some delicious food while we're there, and a lot of culture getting to see those stars, which will be fun for all of us.
That is beautiful.
I know, I can't wait. We're gonna have a great time there, take some great pictures. Along the way in the 4x4 Jeep tours that you can see that we're gonna do, we're also gonna stop and look for ancient carvings in the stones along the way and like the stone walls in the desert as well, before we take a journey back to the capital of Amman. So then we're gonna do our last farewell to Jordan and finish the tour up. The night before, we'll have a farewell dinner all together and enjoy the city. It's a last chance to shop at the local souks and get some souvenirs and different things. And then we will make our way to the airport to leave Jordan. So this is me.
Actually, she's been to over 30 countries, and she'll tell you she just came back from Albania. She travels all the time. She went to Finland and Iceland this year as well. So she'll be joining this group on board at the thing, and she'll be, if you are interested, be happy to help you and talk to you more about the vacation. So this basically what's included. It's unique accommodations. So unique accommodations, delicious regional meals, dedicated driver, stylish transportation. The trip highlights, you don't actually swim in the Dead Sea, you float in the Dead Sea. I apologize for that error. The Church of Nativity, the Sea of Galilee, Dine. This is a really cool company. One of the things they do offer is Be My Guest experiences, where you dine with locals in both Amman and Tel Aviv. Sleep in a luxury tent, so please don't think it's not going to be a roughing it. You'll definitely be glamping it. A Jeep desert tour. It's 12 nights, 22 meals on all your transportation, fully got it. And I thought we had a price on here, and we don't. So, Bailey, what is that price per person?
So the price for 12 days and insurance is $5,000 per person. The only thing we need to add is flights.
Okay, and again, it's a 12 nights, both Israel and Jordan. Again, if you have any questions, please put them into the chat box. And finally, finally, just to remind everybody, Travel Central is your ultimate travel resource. As I said in the very beginning, our goal is to make sure that you have everything you need to travel from the moment you start planning it to the time you return home. We are your advocates, and we do make sure that you have everything you need. And finally, thank you. So if you have any questions, if you could just quick type, what are the hotel classes? So it's going to be 4-star hotels, Bailey?
Correct. It's a range of 4-star hotels and 5-star hotels throughout both countries. And then again, that camping experience you do is very, very nice. It's 4-star, 5-star. The meals are fantastic. And we're in hand-picked hotels and city centers where you're in walking distance of ATMs, restaurants, shopping, and different things like that.
Excellent, excellent. Great. Okay, everybody, I know it seemed brief, but we think we went over the whole presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Bailey or myself at Travel Central. And we are recording this, so if you missed part of it, we will be sending out an email to everyone tomorrow with the recording on it, and it will be on our website and YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us, and y'all have a great afternoon. Bye-bye now.